I'm Harvey Jennings,
I'm Mike Rollins.
and this is Backyard Dollars. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, man. I'm excited to be here. Excited for things we've been talking about. I'm good.
Yeah, we've been talking about financial and financial education for.
Yeah, I mean, truth of the matter is, like we were talking about the other day, you got to have people in your family that know one, know real estate, know the law, and know health. And one of the things that our community really misses out on is the financial side. And if you don't have your parents to teach you some of these, it just never comes. You learn the hard way or you find yourself, you know, like I said, learning the hard way, or you find yourself kind of late in life, getting the opportunity to become a homeowner, maybe not being able to retire when you want to, just so many different things. It's so important.
That's then they shied away from credit cards. I found really credit is king. Not so much cash. I know cash rules everything, but there's no harm in credit.
No, I think what it comes down to though is, so I think of my sister who now has great credit, but she went through some struggles because she got introduced to credit at 18, but it wasn't through, someone who lovingly said, "Hey, Samira, you need to go out and get a credit card so you can build a credit score and you can buy a house." It was just, "Hey, here's a credit card. You got, a couple thousand you could spend." And then you get a young kid, something like that. You go, you waste it. You don't pay it back because you're buying stuff you don't need. And so I agree with you. It is extremely important to have credit, but if nobody really shows you how to manage that credit, you end up kind of shooting
Oh,
yourself in the foot.
100%. I remember when I first got my credit card, I'm like, I'm supposed to pay this back? I didn't know because they gave me a limit of like $1,000. I'm thinking
Yeah.
it's $1,000 free money, and I'm just buying up some stuff, and I get a statement saying, "Hey, I got to pay it back." I'm like, "Whoa, wait, what?"
Yeah, man.
So I was young, and it's one of those things where I was headed to college, and that's how they kind of introduce you when you're signing all these papers, and everybody's sitting at these tables, and you're trying to find out what class is where.
Yep.
They hit you with, "Oh, you get this credit card because school books are $1 trillion, and when you go trade it in, they give you like $5 for a
If
book you
if
pay."
they let you trade it
If
in.
yeah, that's true.
We don't use that one anymore, Mr. Jennings.
Yeah, we're all out.
Yeah.
So what is your background? Your background is in finance, correct?
Yeah, so I got my degree from University of Michigan. I have an economics degree. Once I graduated, I became a financial advisor for about 9.5 years. So I went around teaching people how to invest in their workplace plans. And then in 2016, I became a mortgage banker.
Okay.
So I've been helping people buy homes. I help about 200 families each year purchase or refinance their home
Oh,
all across the country.
that's huge. So obviously numbers and mortgages and math, that's your expertise as far as these
Yeah.
percentages and stuff. So I just had to ask that just in case somebody is listening, like, what makes him knowledgeable in regards to finances? Obviously, because you're a financial advisor.
Yeah.
So as someone with that type of background, what is not really a quick way, but what is a simple way to grow your money? Let's say I have an extra 300 or 400 bucks. Do I just put it in a savings account? Do I just open up a CD or a IRA? Like, how does the average 9 to 5er flip their money? Not necessarily quick, but just let it grow.
That's kind of a little bit of a loaded question because part of it is going to be what are your goals? So, a couple fundamental things that you want to make sure you do, especially if you have little ones who are dependent on you. You got to make sure you have an emergency fund. So, whatever your monthly spending is, if my rent, groceries, car note, they cost me about 2,000 a month, and you're lucky if it only costs you that much.
Yeah.
But say what you're spending is 2,000, 3,000 a month. You got to gradually build yourself an emergency fund. So I wouldn't even worry so much about investing just yet until you take care of that core piece, because so many times I talk to people who have one emergency, like my car broke down, and now they're just in shambles. So you got to make sure you got that first fundamental thing. You got to have your emergency fund. The other thing, if you are, gainfully employed and you work at a place that offers a retirement plan like a 401k, That's excellent. That's automatic savings that you don't have to think about, right? So the goal should be from the day you walk in that door, say for instance, you're doing this fresh out of college. Or you may not have even gone to college. College doesn't matter here, but you want to try and put away 10 to 15% of your gross pay into that retirement account. That's going to do a couple things for you. You're going to get used to not having that money, so it's not going to make it difficult for you.
Okay.
It also reduces your income by that exact amount that you put in there. So say I make 50,000, I put 10,000 into my 401k pre-tax. Well, now my taxable income is only 40,000. So that's helping me with Uncle Sam at the end of the year. And then other thing, in your 401k, most companies are going to have programs where if you don't know anything about investing, you can choose investments that are based upon when you plan to retire. Those are called like target date funds, right? So if I'm going to retire in 2040 or 2038, I pick the target date 2040 fund. It's going to put together a portfolio for me where it decreases risk as I get older. So those are a couple big things. You got to make sure you're saving for yourself. And the other thing is write down your goals. If you don't know what your goals are financially, you're just going to be out here spending. And I see it all the time. I just bought some glasses recently, and a young man was in there trying to buy some Cardis in Southfield and some Buffs, excuse me.
Yeah, get it right. Get it right. Buffs.
Get it right. And the glasses are like 3,600 or whatever they were, right? And the guy's talking about how he's got to save up for these glasses. And I'm just thinking, Jesus Christ, 3,600. If you got to save up for it and it's a luxury like that, what's the rest of your stuff look like? Do you own a house yet? Do you have savings? It's just so many things that many of us have not been taught, and it kind of leaves us chasing things in a wrong order. If your money's straight, buy all the luxuries you want.
Mhm.
But for so many of us,
I
it's
mean,
not.
I get that too. I think the money is there when you talk about, especially in urban areas. I believe the money is there because, like you say, we gotta look good.
Yeah.
You gotta have the Cardis, gotta have your kicks, gotta be clean.
Yep.
You gotta have the latest whip. So the money is there, but a lot of us don't know where to put it.
Yeah.
That's what I think the problem is not knowing where to place the money that we have. So, for example, you're saying have an emergency fund. Somebody might be like, okay, well, I'll just take some cash and just keep it tucked away in a cookie jar or something like that and add it that way for an emergency fund.
Yep.
Or put or divide my check when it comes in, because now it's a lot easier to split your check compared
It
to
is.
back in the day. You can just split it up for this percentage will go into checking or this percentage will go into savings.
Super easy now.
So when you're saying have an emergency fund, probably like 10 to 15%, are we talking about annually or monthly, like your annual salary? Or
Good. So good question. When I say the 10 to 15%, you're taking 10 to 15% of what you earn gross before any taxes come out.
Okay.
You always pay yourself first. So it automatically comes out of your gross paycheck. And the reason, like I said, you want to do it like that, you don't see it. You get
That's
used to
true.
not having that money so it doesn't hurt you. The other thing though, from a cultural standpoint, you are absolutely right. We gotta look good. We want. I kind of shared this story with you. If you don't have a person to really give you guidance on the things that are truly important, I might decide what's important by what I see on TV.
That's true.
So when I was a financial advisor, I was telling you a story. I started off with Fidelity Investments in Ann Arbor, right out of college. Great experience for the most part, right? But we had this one couple that would come in all the time. And I mean, they drove a Ford Tempo. When you talk about the lemon of all Fords, the Ford Tempo was it, right? The wife normally had her hair in braids. This is a Caucasian couple. So, braids is a little bit different. And this couple was in their 60s at the time. And she always had red lipstick on her teeth. They were so nice.
But she's got the red lipstick on it.
Always. But my point is just to kind of give you a visual, right? She was wearing fanny packs before fanny packs came back in style. You know what I mean? So this was a couple that they were just living life. You know what I mean? They were happy as can be, always smiling. First time I saw them and they came in, the first thing that came to mind was, man, they look broke. But when I brought that account up, 7 figures. They were millionaires. But if you
Right around
look
the
at
Ford Temple?
right around on the Ford Tempo. Ford Tempo. So this is back in like '06. I think they stopped making
Ford
a Ford
Temples weren't
Tempo.
even cool when they first came out.
No, never. So I think they stopped making a Tempo in the '90s, but they rocking this thing, but they are multimillionaires. So
Wow.
my point coming back to what you said, we do have the money within our community to accomplish some outstanding things. I just think that sometimes we have not been taught the importance of focusing on things in the right order. Because I'm all about, doing nice things, but you got to make sure your house is in order first.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you on that, and I found that out the hard way when I was, in college. I was in Madonna. I went to Madonna University for a couple years, and
Mhm.
there's this one professor. He was cool. We chopped it up for a little bit, and one time after class, um, somehow he found out what type of car I drove, and at the time, 18-inch rims. That was as big as it got. If you got
Yeah.
18s on your car, people would turn you away. Some shops wouldn't even put it on, like, you can't fit 18s on the car. So I had 18-inch, 8-mile wheels with the
Hmm.
little 8-ball center cap um, on my Lincoln Continental.
Let's go.
So I was young, man. I was like 18, 19, and I
Stankin'
was
Lincoln.
man, I was living life. And my professor was like, "Hey, quick question. How much those wheels set you back?" I'm like, "These are like probably $1,900."
Hmm.
And this was '03. I want to say, oh yeah, '02, '03. And I said, $1,900. And he goes, "Okay, I tell you what, you spent your 1,900, right?" And he said, "I'm gonna match you. I'm gonna put $1,900 away. I'm gonna put it in a high interest savings account that I have."
Hmm.
And he said, "We're gonna revisit this next year, um, and see who comes out ahead." I'm like, "I'll come out ahead because I'm looking good, right?" So the following year, we followed up, and he says, "Okay, how you sitting?"
Hmm.
I was pissed because my car is shaking like crazy. I hit a pothole.
What?
One of the rims is bent,
Oh, you already know.
and I blew out 2 tires within 12 months, so I had to replace the tires.
Michigan roads, man. Come on now.
So I found out the hard way, and so he goes, "Okay, so it cost you more money, and then if you were to sell it, how much would you get for it?" "Maybe $800. In its current condition, 6." And he's like, "Well, the $1,900 that I
Hmm.
told you I was gonna match you," he goes, I got it up to like 2,100 now, 2,100, and I'm looking good though.
Yeah, you
I
looking
spent
good.
spent the money. So my man with the buffs, the point is, my guy with the buffs, he's spending 3,600. I don't know his personal situation.
Hmm.
However, for him to say that I have to save up for it lets me know that he's really working.
Oh yeah.
He wants those. He's really working and he's saving for that. But I think he'll be better off at least putting $1,500 away someplace else and starting over again. That's not sexy spending.
It's not.
It's the type of spending we put money away, but nobody is saying, "Dog, you looking sweet, man. You looking sweet." I got like 2 or 3 grand put away somewhere,
Yeah.
and I'm rocking a shirt from Target and some jeans from Meyer. Nobody's talking about something that's sweet.
No, I mean you're right, but if you do things in a disciplined way and you have a plan, it's a get rich slow scheme. If
Get
I
rich slow scheme.
It
Okay, go ahead.
is. And when I think about it, the good thing for me is I learned in high school. I was in a finance program in high school, and I had a mentor that was a stockbroker at Solomon Smith Barney. They don't even exist anymore. But he just really taught me a lot. And one of the things he taught our class was there was this thing called a Roth IRA, right?
Mhm.
You put money in it that you've already been taxed on. And regardless of what it grows to over time, when you pull that money out, all of it is tax free. So if you are disciplined, right? I might put in $5,000 a year over a 30-year career, right? That's 150,000 in contributions, but I got all this compound growth. By the time I retire, that might be $2 million. That's mine to do with as I please, and the taxes have already been satisfied. That young brother who was trying to buy the Buffs or whatnot, once again, this is not sexy stuff we're talking about, but it's the fundamental stuff that we may not have had access to be taught, right? So there are so many ways to become wealthy, to be able to retire, to be able to be comfortable, to be in a position where you can pass wealth along. But once again, you got to do it early, and you got to have somebody who introduces you to it, who says, hey, maybe instead of buying those Buffs, why don't we get you these nice Gucci frames over here that's 800-900, and instead take that other 2,700. Let's drop that in a Roth IRA. And even if he doesn't put anything else into it, whatever it grows to over the next 20 plus years of his or his working career, that's all his. No taxes.
No taxes.
No
Just
taxes.
everything. Yeah.
Everything.
No, so you're right. That's not sexy spending, but it's imperative. And like you said, it's something you want to pass on.
It is.
With that being said, let's say, because daycare is crazy.
You made me sure.
I remember the cost of daycare, man. 2 kids in daycare is going to run you like about $2,200 a month. And
It's a mortgage.
This was like 9 years ago. I don't know what it is now.
It's bad.
So with passing on a legacy, a financial legacy for your children, how will we go about that? Because a lot of us, it's like, hey, my kid is turning 4. My kid is turning 5.
Yeah.
We're going to show out. We're going to have a party. They may or may not remember it, but we're gonna drop some everything. We're gonna have bounce houses. I'm gonna make sure that everything is crazy and give them the life that I want them to have.
Yeah.
I want them to look good, but it doesn't really secure their future on the back end. So how will we go about saying, little Tommy here, we want to secure his future? Do we open up a bank account and put some money in it for him? Or do we do the infamous, hey, I need some cable, I'm gonna put it in his name because I haven't been financially responsible with mine? Like, how do we go about securing Timmy's?
So it's interesting, right? Because as you were describing the party that the kid won't remember, I remember we took Max to Disney World. He was 1. That was expensive, right? But sometimes as a parent or as a person, you're so busy trying to give your children what you didn't have that you forget that these things are not necessarily what they need. So to secure your kid's future, I think there are a few elements that are really important, right? We talked about the emergency fund because, like you said, stuff comes up and you don't want one little mishap, like your car breaking down, I lost my job. You don't want that to totally flip your world upside down.
Oh, and it can. Like,
Oh
for
my
the rest of the
God.
year, you're done.
Yeah.
Even
so
just a flat tire.
that's right.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare. But 2 things I think are extremely important. One, you got to have insurance. African American men, unfortunately, I'm thinking about my own mortality so much right now, man. I ain't gonna get into all that, but I'm just thinking about these things so much. So I have life insurance. I've got a lot of it, but I only have it through my job. So that's a failure on my part because now I'm 40 plus, and if I lose my job, I don't have any life insurance. You gotta have life insurance.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's a huge one because at the end of the day, your value to your child is so much greater with you being alive. But just imagine if the worst thing were to happen, your kid will be able to, whoever is the caregiver for your children will be able to pick up the pieces because you left something behind because the horrible thing happened, right?
Mhm.
You got to have life insurance. The other thing, we have to own real estate. Real estate is, and this has been proven, real estate is the biggest wealth builder in the history of this country. You got to have real estate. So I have so many clients. Like I said, I help hundreds of people refinance or purchase homes every year. Do you know how many of those are taking equity out of their home to fund their children's college? They are getting gifts from their parents to purchase their first homes, and it's not us.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
some,
Yeah.
some, but not really. And if you don't own real estate, you are missing out on probably the easiest way to build wealth. I own 4 homes, and it's funny how I came to own 4 homes, as a matter of fact, too. I got fired from a job, and I everything about my self-worth was connected to that job, and when I lost it, I was like, "Oh my god, I have to have income coming in." So I
And, I remember that because I think for a minute there, you were renting out a house.
yeah,
Yeah, you're renting out houses and everything
yeah,
for
and I still have those, but it just came because too often we also tie our self-worth to money, and
Mhm.
I kinda got caught up in that because this crazy change in my life, but that real estate has appreciated significantly. I've owned that stuff since 2014. It's appreciated significantly. My primary home is worth 200 grand more than I paid for it in 2019.
Mm.
So my point though, there are not many things where you can build wealth in as beneficial or as easy a way as you can do it in real estate. So you got to have real estate to pass along to your children, and you have to have insurance.
I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly, and I think that as parents, we kind of fall into the trap of, "Why not? Why can't I give my child this?" Because when I was coming up, there were some things that I wanted as a kid, and now that I look back, I didn't get it because we didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
We couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So, I'm in a position now where I'm comfortable and I can provide things for my children because I can.
That's right.
It's not one of those things I can't. It's because I can, but I think what we end up doing is we end up hurting them in the long run
100%.
because we're spending crazy amounts of money on birthday parties and proms and attire that we're not really taking care of the back end
That's right.
as far as having our children have a perfect credit score by the time they graduate high school and get into college. As far as when they graduate college, here's some money set aside for them to buy their home.
Yeah.
Um, the I think the money is there in our community. It's just misplaced. Because if you think about it, the the baby showers, the cars, the paint job, the sound systems, and the money is there
It is.
unless you're scamming. Unless you're scamming, but if you're doing on up and up, the money is there.
It is.
Um, and as far as life insurance policies, that's one of the reasons why I took out a couple life insurance policies also. I mean, they're not gonna tell you you can't have. I've got multiple policies. I've got
Yeah.
one with my employer. Like you said, but if I get let go, that's that. I don't
Yeah.
have
It's
anything.
gone.
So I do have life insurance. I have a term life insurance policy and a whole life insurance policy on myself. And I don't know about you, but as far as children, they can also get a life insurance policy for themselves to protect them. Unfortunately, I know it's morbid. You don't want to talk about it, but children do die,
I
unfortunately.
have life insurance policies for my kids, but those are also through work. And you're right, it does seem morbid, but sometimes you just gotta prepare for the worst. And a good thing, they're very inexpensive.
Oh yeah, life insurance policies are. Some of my policies they start off at like $18 a month
Yeah.
for like 40,000 in coverage.
Younger
50,000.
you are when you get them, and the healthier you are, the better. Get them for a longer term, and just try and do it pre-40,
Oh yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah. And when you're locked in with certain policies, you're locked in.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
As long as you pay that premium, you're
As long
good.
as you pay a premium, you're good. Whereas you might have some health issues 15 years after you sign for your life insurance policy, but you're still good.
Yeah.
Whereas you have these health issues now, and now you want to get a life insurance
That's
policy,
right.
and they're like,
Smoking,
yeah,
diabetes, all that stuff, that hypertension, all that stuff will make, they're going to look at your medical records. They're going to do their own blood draws and stuff like that. So it is important, even if you're not in great shape at this point, it's still even more reason you got to go ahead and do it, even if it is a little bit more expensive. You gotta, you have to budget and prioritize the things that are going to hold down your line. This is your legacy. You got to protect your kids.
Yes, that is true. Without them, there really is no legacy.
No, that's
And
exactly it.
and unfortunately, a lot of people are depending on GoFundMe's.
Oh man,
And
GoFundMe
so
is a four-letter word to me.
yeah,
I,
so
I
I
get irritated every time I see one.
yeah, people say like GoFundMe, and I'm like, eh,
It's the new begging to me, and I can't stand it. When it is truly legitimate, all right, I get it. But a GoFundMe for your kids' car and all this, not no. Go to work.
yeah. Well, I
Back
mean,
yourself.
well, GoFundMe, like Kickstarter, originally started where if you had a business idea
Exactly.
and you needed some extra funding, and then you would have it on GoFundMe or Kickstarter because you had a
Hmm.
business idea. But now they're turning it's become something else now, and that's not what it was originally for.
Right.
And so I think it's also a four-letter word too, with life insurance policies being as affordable as they are now.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where it's out of reach for the everyday 9 to 5er. It's not one of those things where, oh,
It's not.
you got to bring in 6 figures, 7 figures a year to get a nice life insurance policy. Because I can get a real nice 6 figure policy, a
Yeah.
7 figure policy for a few bucks a month.
At a minimum, you got to do it through work. That is the fastest, least expensive way where they're not going to do all these health tests.
Mhm.
At a minimum, you got to have a one through work, right? The ones outside of work, those are probably arguably more important because they're not you're not beholden to your employer, but you got to have some form of insurance. So even if you can't spare it and do it on your own, you get the group pricing through work, makes it super affordable. But there's no excuse. You have to do it. I think what it all is coming down to is a lot of times I don't know that we necessarily set goals and priorities. And when you don't set
So
goals and priorities, and I'm guilty of this too.
same
I
here.
can't tell you last time I truly sat and wrote down my goals. But when you don't set these goals and priorities, you're spending money trying to do well for yourself in many cases, but because you don't know what is important or you haven't set a goal, you don't know where to put that money. And it's just gone. Another check gone, another check gone.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely have to write your vision and make it plain, but some people can't see beyond the front door.
It's
So
true.
a lot of people, they want that satisfaction right here, right now,
Yep.
but they can't see 5, 6 years from now. Um, like for example, I've got uh, a couple of car notes. I hate it. I hate the fact that I do have some, and that wasn't the long term
Hmm.
goal. I was just I needed something quick,
Yep.
and because I had a car situation, I was immobile, so I needed to purchase another vehicle. But here it is, long term. No matter how low the interest rate is, that car, the moment I drove it off the lot, it depreciated, and I'm stuck at that rate.
Yeah.
And so, if it's a $75,000 car, I'm stuck at the $75,000. Whereas if I had just waited
Yeah.
a couple years, I probably could have got that certified pre-owned for about $10,000, $15,000 less than what
If
I had
if
when I bought it new.
if not more. So I've had some beautiful cars. Only time I get a car that is brand new is if it's a lease. And I rarely decide to lease. We should not be buying brand new cars. Like that is not an asset to you in any way, shape, or form. And a lot of the guys I work with, we're earners. We make good money. Most of those guys, they'll get a certified pre-owned, trade it in before it loses too much value, get something else. There are always smart ways to do anything. I've got clients that unfortunately have knocked themselves out of being able to purchase a home because they've got these exorbitant car notes. First time a client cussed me out, I did everything I could to get this guy qualified. We had to have added 4 potential co-signers. I mean, I'm jumping through all types of hoops to get him qualified. Finally get him qualified. His realtor found a house for him, and uh, we needed a new credit report because we had been working together so long and he hadn't found anything. So I got a new credit report, and he went out and bought a car. Ugh,
While
I was
qualifying for a mortgage and everything?
Yeah. And I'm like, "We already struggled, trying to get you here." And I called him and I said, "Did you buy a car?" He was like, "Yeah."
So what does that do?
It blew up his debt ratio. He was already just barely qualifying. We figured it out. He went out and got a $600-700 car note. Now his debt ratio is over 60 some percent. It might have been 70% at this point. And I told him he didn't qualify anymore. And he F
Oh,
me and all
oh,
this. And I'm like,
okay.
did I go buy this car?
Okay, so so if you're qualifying for a mortgage, don't go buy a car. How about that?
Yeah.
So it is does it take that big of an impact on your credit score if I'm in the process of getting a mortgage and I'm like, you know what, while I'm waiting for this, I'm gonna go get this whip real
Well,
quick.
let's talk about some fundamentals here. Everybody, so I'm not one who believes that everybody deserves to have this or that. However, I do think it should be a human right to have a roof over your head, right? So, in order to purchase a home, it's a few things that you want to do first. Because I see people who apply all the time who got no business applying. But this is what you want to do. You want to make sure your credit score is at least 580. Okay. 580 is the bottom of the bottom of scores that you can qualify with. So that really isn't your target, but you want to make sure you have at least a 580 middle credit score. Okay. You got 3 credit scores. That's why I'm saying middle.
Okay.
So you want to make sure you have at least a 580. Ideally, though, if you can get that credit score to 620 or higher, that's better because you're gonna have more loan options. You're not gonna have as many restrictions on you. So,
When you talk about restrictions, what do you mean restriction?
okay, so if your credit score is under 620, the only loan type that's available for you is a government loan called FHA for the most part, right? You go over 620, now I can get conventional loans like my Fannie Mae, my Freddie Mac,
I got you.
right? But the restriction is this. If your credit score is under, let's say under 640 in some cases, your maximum debt ratio is going to be capped at like 45%. But so that means that's a lot less house you can buy if you don't get that credit score tight first. But if I get my credit score to 640 or higher, now instead of being capped at a 45% debt ratio, I can go up to 57% with an FHA loan. That might be another 50, 60, $70,000 worth of house you can afford. That might mean an extra bedroom for the family, an extra 500, 1,000 square feet on that house. That might mean instead of, living in a part of the city I don't want to live in, maybe I can get into Sherwood Forest. I don't know. You know what I mean? But so first, people make sure your credit is good. You got to make sure you avoid late payments. They hurt your credit score worse than anything. Late payments, then you don't want to have your credit lines all maxed out, right? If you got credit cards, when you apply, you want those credit cards to have a balance of 25% of whatever your credit limit is, right? Because that'll help boost up the score. And then the other thing, make sure you have gainful employment. You can't apply if you don't have a job or some source of recordable income. We do get folks applying and they got no income. So it's just things that feel like they're common sense that sometimes folks don't know because mom and dad never owned a home. Not talking about mine particularly, but for a lot of us, our parents didn't own a home, so they couldn't really pass that skill, right? And then the other thing, as far as money, if you want to buy a home, the minimum down payment is going to be 3 to 3.5% of the purchase price, right? So I'm looking at a $200,000 house. I'm going to need at least 6 to 7,000. That's just for the down payment.
Okay.
But you got closing costs, and those are 3 to 5% of the purchase price of the home. So that kind of gives you an idea what you need.
And with the prices of homes being the way they are today, eh, I'm pretty sure mom and dad and the baby boomers are making out like a bandit because they bought their house and it was
In the
made.
80s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now that same house in that same neighborhood is probably 600,000, 700,000.
The
in some cases.
blessing, you are correct. The blessing that we have, Detroit is still one of the most affordable markets. Everybody don't want to be in Detroit, I'm sure, but Michigan is one of the more affordable markets. Detroit is one of the, I think it was ranked like number 3 in terms of affordability. Detroit's a good place to buy a house, and you get some beautiful architecture here.
Of course.
But you're right. It used to be, going back to 2020, if you earned about $59,000 a year, you could comfortably afford about a $250,000 house.
Easily, yep.
In just 4 years, what would have been about a $250,000 house is now about a $347,000 house. And you almost need to earn 6 figures now in order to buy what would be the average cost of a home in the US now.
Yes. That's crazy.
It is.
That's crazy. And so one of the things that kind of baffles me sometimes is there are some people, they can qualify to rent.
Yeah.
And some places rent is $1,100,
Yeah.
$1,200 a month, and that's a bad apartment.
Mhm.
It's no AC, nothing like that. You want something nice, that's going to be about $2,400-$2,500 a month just for rent.
Yes.
And then it's going to go up in 12 months unless
Yep.
you lock in that rate for 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah.
But it's going to go up every time you renew. In some cases, I'm finding where people might not have the credit, or now that they heard that they need at least a 580, they're like, wait a minute, let me reevaluate. So some people might think they might not qualify because of the credit or debt ratio, but yet they can qualify for rent. And in some cases, rent is higher than mortgage.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it used to be the case. If we go back to about 2022, it might have been 2021, go back just a couple years, it was cheaper in almost every state to own a home than it was to rent. Now it's cheaper to rent across the country than it is to be a homeowner. Just a combination of home prices going up and interest rates going up. But good news, we should be getting some relief from interest rates this year. The Fed said they're going to cut rates 3 times. First cut probably will be coming in June.
Oh, okay. Well, do you know?
No idea.
You just know that they're going to do 3 cuts within this year?
They may not even actually do 3. That's their target.
Oh, that's their target.
Right.
Got you.
And what's happening is, if people think the economy is doing terribly, but we're blowing these jobs numbers out. So many people are going into the workforce, and as more people have jobs, they're worried about more spending. More spending means more pressure on inflation. More pressure on inflation. The Fed is like, oh, nope, we're going to leave these rates exactly where they are and not cut. So it's just one of those things where it's always a good time to make the right decision. Becoming a homeowner is the right decision if you can afford to do so. Because and even if interest rates were 8 or 9%, it would still be better to do it in that environment than wait until they go down. Because when they go down, you have tens of thousands of potential home buyers on the sidelines right now, waiting for rates to go down. And when they do, when they get back into the 5s, because right now they're like 7%. When rates get back into the 5s, there is going to be a mass convergence of home buyers coming back, and it's going to shoot those home prices through the roof. So I would much rather, it sucks, if I got to buy at 8% or even 7%, but I would rather secure that $300,000 home than wait until rates are 5%. And now that $300,000 home is going to cost me $350 because it's 7, 8 people trying to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. But you also, too, you have the people that, there's pros and cons to everything. But there are some that are saying that they rather rent because if something goes crazy, then it's on the landlord or
That's right.
the company to take care of it. I don't have to pay the taxes on where I'm staying. But as we said earlier, you stated that that's one of the quickest ways to build wealth. Is it
That's right.
because of the equity in the home once you own it? Because
Yeah.
granted, there's no equity in the apartment. That's just like 2 or 3 grand a month that's just gone, I'll never see again.
So I realized this years ago, early in my career as a mortgage banker. Say, for instance, I get an apartment, like you said, say I pay $2,000 a month. So I'm paying 24,000 a year this year. That rent might go up by another 10% the year after. But let's say it doesn't. So let's say I rent this place for 3 years. I just gave $72,000 to that landlord or apartment complex. If I had bought a home and I said, okay, to my mortgage banker, I want to buy something that keeps me within a $2,000 payment, including my taxes and my insurance, right? So that might be a $250,000 house, right? Well, I pay my 2,000 every single month. But when I go to sell it 3 years later, I bought it for 250. It's probably worth 300 because the way property values have been going up has been insane. But say for instance, it's not worth 300. Say it's worth 265. It's worth 270. I'm still gonna get back almost everything I spent to acquire that home. Whereas if it's an apartment, all I'm getting is a goodbye. I'm getting a
Yeah.
wave.
I mean,
Whereas
you might get your deposit back.
you might. Whereas if I had bought instead, now I got some money back in my pocket that'll help me move on to my new home. I can buy some furniture. I can drop some money into my bank account. I used a very conservative, 265, 270, but the way home values have been growing, that
Mhm.
house easily would have been over, 300,000.
Yeah, well, and probably more depending on what
Probably
area.
more.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
depending on what area. So then what can be, I wanna say, we got a couple minutes, 6 minutes, so let's jump to some cheat codes real quick.
Okay.
How can someone boost their credit score? And I'm really not one of those that's wanting to deal with those credit repair type people. I mean, if I
Yeah.
made the debt, I made the debt, I'm gonna pay it. I'm not gonna play the game. But how can I boost my credit score?
First, you need to know what's on it.
'Kay.
So you need to get on some type of app. You got Rocket Money has a great app where you can see your credit score. You got Credit Karma where you can see your credit score. And it's not about seeing the score, it's about seeing what's on it.
Okay.
If you see anything derogatory on there, address it. Try and get it taken care of. If you got collections, work with the company where they'll give you a letter saying that, hey, this debt has been taken care of, and they'll remove the derogatory information. All of them won't, but many of them will. And they'll settle with you to settle that debt for way cheaper than what you owe in most cases. So get the credit balances down on credit cards to about 25% of the credit limit. No late payments. Late payments hurt you worse than anything. And make sure you know what's on your credit. Easy way to start boosting up score. And if you're going to get a mortgage, if you have a 580 or higher, with some companies 560 or higher, they'll help you for free to boost up your credit score to help you to qualify to purchase a home.
And so I take care of it because some, like I said, some collection companies won't. Some might say, well, we'll show settled in full.
Mhm.
Some might say we'll show paid in full. Some say we'll just take it off. Does one hurt you more than the other?
I'm not a credit expert, so I can't necessarily say if they code it a certain way. Now, if they take it off altogether,
No, yeah, of course.
that's going to be better than anything. I can't necessarily say if it says settled in full or anything, but what some people do is they dispute anything negative on their credit.
Okay.
Mortgage companies are too smart for that. If you dispute it, it's just not calculated into your credit score. But if you got crap credit, even if you got good credit, you're only allowed to have so many disputes when you go to qualify for a mortgage. So you can't hide behind that. If you got issues on the credit, you need to address them.
Okay. Yeah, and that is a big thing.
It's a
It-
huge thing.
It's a big thing. And then as far as credit cards too, what can we do to qualify for a credit card? Because credit cards can jump your credit or actually hurt your credit too.
Yeah. So what people tend to do, because we talk to a lot of people who don't have any credit established either. So one of the fastest ways to do it is you get a secured card from whatever bank you bank with, right? They'll give you a credit limit, 300, 500, something easily manageable. And then you want to use that for something like groceries, gas, something that you can pay right back off, right?
Okay. Mhm.
That will, you might need to leave, $25 balance on there to really help boost the credit, but this will help to establish credit for you relatively quickly. And then if you continue to pay on time and your balances aren't too high, over time, it'll start to be good credit. But you need at least a couple of accounts open.
Okay. No, I got that. Noted. For closing thoughts, man, anything that you want to say or address? Closing thoughts. I mean, you got 2 minutes to go ahead and say what's on your mind.
I would say these type of conversations are super important. And the reason you and I started talking about it was I read an article on Bank of America and how they had turned away all these African Americans who had really strong qualifications for mortgages. They had rejected them, but their white counterparts had gotten approved for financing with the same, assets, the same credit. As a community, we have to be able to lean on each other. As you succeed, bring somebody along with you. If you're doing something that's great, don't be like, well, I'm doing fine, so just forget this person over there. Bring them along with you. People, we can coexist and be successful together. It is not going to hurt me that you own homes and that you are successful. In fact, you're going to then be able to tell me, hey, Mike, you know what? I found this out about my house and I was able to drop my taxes. And then you can share that same information with me. We have to bring each other along together. That's the most important thing. Ask questions, have a mentor, and lean on people who are aware or who are doing the things you want to do. You can't, if you hang with broke folks, that's a reflection of you. Your circle says everything about
Your
you.
circle does say a lot. It says a lot about you, and you're right. We can coexist.
That's right.
There's a lot of food at the table, so
That's right.
we do have to share. And I'm glad you brought that up because I do see there are some cultures that they're going to stay with mom and dad. They're going to live together, 20 or 30. They're still living together, still helping each other out,
Yep.
and not moving out until they get married or until they pick up a job or something overseas. But as some of us have this notion, hey, at 18, some of us were at 15, 16, we're on our own.
That's right.
But I'm starting to see now here lately that a lot of us in our community are getting the news that, hey, you don't have to leave.
That's right.
Mom and dad, and son and daughter, you can all stay together and
That's
help out,
right.
especially in this economy. Some people are like, yeah, I need as much help as I can get.
100%.
Yep. But hey,
100%.
man, I want to thank you for coming out, man. I do
Always.
appreciate that. Thanks
It's
a lot.
an honor that you allowed me to come and speak.
Oh, of course, man.
I appreciate it.
Anything that anytime I see someone that wants to help someone out, especially within our community, you got to give them a voice and a platform.
100%.
I thank y'all. Appreciate it. We're out.
Appreciate you.